name is Julia Walsh. I'm the campaign director of Fracking and a member of the New Yorkers Against Fracking Coalition. Today is a great day for New Yorkers and people across this country because today New York has a ban on fracking. Governor Cuomo held to his word and listened to the science on fracking. The New York State Health Commissioner Zucker and Department of Environmental Conservation Commissioner Martens presented their research yesterday at the governor's cabinet meeting about the environmental and health risks of fracking, deeming that it is not safe and it is banned from happening here in New York State. It is time for governors across this country to learn from the heroic and bold leadership of Governor Andrew Cuomo. The science is in on fracking, and it's time for renewable energy now. And with that, I would like to welcome up some of our scientists and health professionals who for many years have been spending their own time and volunteering for all of us in New York and all of us across this country to research what is happening with the devastating health impacts and science that has been coming out on fracking. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Sandra Steingraber, biologist and distinguished scholar in residence, pediatrician and bioethicist Dr. Kathy Nolan, preventative medicine and public health Dr. Sheila Bushkin, and professor of civil and environmental engineering Dr. Yuri Gorby to speak.
Thank you, Julia. I'm Sandra Steingraber, and I'm speaking on behalf of concerned health professionals of New York. And last week here in Albany, we all came to debut the second edition of the compendium on the findings of the risks and harms of fracking, a more than 100-page document with 444 footnotes. And we described the newest, all this newest data to the press and gave a copy to the governor and to our Department of Health. On the same day, another independent group of scientists reached similar conclusions to us. And here they are presented graphically. We did a qualitative analysis. Physicians, scientists, engineers did a statistical analysis. And I think you can see from the top of the stairway in blue, these are all the studies that show risks and harms of fracking. And in red are the studies that showed no harms of or fracking or no signs of that. So the overwhelming amount of evidence that we have available indicates that there are problems. What we didn't know last week is that there was a third shop of scientists also analyzing this same body of data, and that third shop of scientists was housed within the Department of Health. And they reached the same conclusions that concerned health professionals of New York and physicians, scientists, and engineers for healthy energy also reached. And to quote from the executive summary of the DOH report, they said, the longitudinal studies that could contribute to the understanding of these relationships are either not yet completed or have yet to be initiated. In this instance, however, the overall weight of the evidence from the cumulative body of knowledge demonstrates there are significant uncertainties, and it goes on to say that in the absence of certainty that fracking that we see signs that fracking has, now I'm quoting again, resulted in environmental impacts that are potentially adverse to public health. So in other words, whenever there are troubling signs of harm, the benefit of doubt belongs to public health, not to the things that threaten public health. That's the main message. In these findings and in the DEC's affirmation of these findings and in Governor Cuomo's endorsement of these findings, we see two things: an affirmation of science. Science is objective in its analysis, but it is not neutral when it comes to public health. We see that science is not a monk that lives in seclusion, but rather can serve as a gladiator in the public arena to remind the government what its job is. So this is also an affirmation of government. Government's job is to secure the safety and well-being of the citizenry. That's guaranteed to us in our constitutions, rather than enable the business plans for the fossil fuel industry. So thank you, Governor Cuomo, for acting as a governor. Governor Cuomo said something else that we in the scientific community heard loud and clear yesterday. He said, quote, "Those who feel they have no economic alternative must be helped with safe, clean, and economic development." Governor, New York scientists take that as a personal challenge to us. We hear you. We have your back. We have ideas and blueprints for how to build a renewable energy economy built on ecological principles and public health, and we will work with you to implement them. What the government's decisive action means for the world is hard to explain one day later, but I can tell you that my email inbox has been filled up with 1,900 messages between yesterday and today. They come as far away as South Africa, Northern Ireland, Germany, and every single state in the Union wants to know how to replicate our success. They come from people in government, they come from fellow scientists, they come from people who live in fracked communities. So what the governor has done here is take our mascot, New Yorkers Against Fracking mascot, Lady Liberty herself, and raised her torch to serve, to illuminate to the rest of the world how we can move forward in an unfractured future. That's what the governor has done yesterday with his decision. Thank you, Governor Cuomo, for that. In fact, I was reminded this morning of the plot of one of my favorite ballets, Stravinsky's Firebird, which is based on a Russian folktale where Prince Ivan, who's the hero, has to go to battle against a character called Koschei the Deathless, who's considered immortal and unvanquishable. And everyone tells Ivan not to go to war with this guy, that there's nothing you can do about Koschei the Deathless, because in his kingdom he turns everyone to stone. But Ivan, with an assist from the Firebird, does vanquish Koschei the Deathless. And when he does, the amazing thing at the end of the story is all that garden statuary, they turn back into citizens again. They become alive again. So I think what we've done here is we've broken the spell. We've shown people that they can battle the fossil fuel industry and win and become alive again, become citizens again. And with an assist from our leaders, like Governor Cuomo, we can move forward into a whole new kind of future where the fossil fuel industry does not hold us hostage to its toxic ideas for us. On a personal note, my son was 8 years old when I decided to take all of my skill set as a scientist and throw it into this fight. He's now going into high school. And when he was 8 years old and I came to Albany for the first time to testify and offer data when we only had a little bit of data on the subject about the risks and harms of fracking, I came home and he asked me, "Mom, did you ban fracking yet?" And every time I came to Albany and came home, he would ask me the same question, "Mom, did you ban fracking yet?" And that way that young children believe their parents have way more power than we possibly do. And I always said my little prayer, which was, let me be as powerful as my son thinks that I am to protect his future. So yesterday, when I heard this announcement, I called my son in school. He has the cell phone now. I said, "Elijah, ask me that question. You always ask me when I come home from Albany, just ask me." And he asked me, and I said, "Yeah, we did it. We did it today." Thank you, Governor Cuomo, for saying yes to my son Elijah and for safeguarding his future and all the future of the children of New York State. We thank you.
I'm Dr. Kathy Nolan, also with Concerned Health Professionals of New York, and I just want to thank Governor Cuomo for appointing people of deep integrity and dedication to the public good. Joe Martens as the Commissioner of the DEC and Dr. Howard Zucker as the Acting Commissioner of the Department of Health. Dr. Zucker has really stated it quite clearly when he says prevention is the hallmark of public health. We thank all of the leaders and we thank all of the citizens who have come together to generate this result. And we especially thank Dr. Zucker and Governor Cuomo for stating quite openly that if the harmful effects of fracking are brought to one child, to one person, then that's not acceptable. We have to take this as though this is our child, our family. This is the level of protection that we want. New York is the great state of New York, and that is what we want for our future.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sheila Bushkin-Bedient, and I would also like to express my most sincere gratitude ever to Governor Cuomo for his unfailing determination to get to the root of the matter, to get all the facts, so that he could base his policy decision upon the science. And I would like to thank his entire staff, and particularly Commissioner Martens and Acting Commissioner Dr. Zucker for the enormous amount of work they did going through and sifting through the hundreds and hundreds of peer-reviewed articles and other fact-revealing papers that they read so that they could form a clear picture of where fracking would take the population of New York State if it went forward. Together, as a team, they have protected our future, and they have protected the future of all of our children and grandchildren and generations to come. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Yuri Gorby. I want to commend the governor and his administration for paying attention to the science and making the right decision about hydraulic fracturing. I do want to also say, though, as we celebrate here in New York State, there are other states that are currently under attack and there are people that are being harmed by chemical exposure. The list of the harmed you might want to check out. Is now over 6,000 people. So these are not just individuals; these are populations that are being impacted. Sandra, yesterday I went home and I told my 10-year-old son, Simon, yeah, we did it. This is banned from this state. And he said, great. But without taking a breath, he said, now it's time to do it in other states. And that's what I'm here to deliver this message. We need a voice. We needed a voice. The governor, his administration in New York State is that voice, not only for this state, but for this country and ultimately for the world. Thank you again, Governor.
For those people that just got here, if you want to grab a sign and walk around, you can be part of the grouping back there. Next we have Roger Downs, Conservation Director from the Sierra Club Atlantic Chapter.
Thank you. When we all of us, began this campaign in 2008 to fight legislation that was to facilitate fracking, in the beginning we were merely fighting to have the technique examined. We needed a study before the government was willing to move forward. And we had to fight to get that study. And at the time we were told that it would never, that we would never be successful. It was a done deal, that it would be impossible for us to win. And the Sierra Club wants to thank Cuomo. We want to herald Cuomo for making the impossible possible. Thank you. And I want to say that aside from the great political courage that we saw yesterday and the infusion of science into that decision-making process, we never would have gotten here without a vast movement of tens of thousands of New Yorkers.
That's right.
Yes, fractivists or those in the movement, we are scientists, we are doctors, we are teachers, we are business people, we are students, we are children, we are grandmothers, grandfathers, mothers, fathers. And I want to say now that we can include Commissioner Howard Zucker, we can include Commissioner Martens, and we can include Governor Cuomo as one of us. Thank you, Governor Cuomo.
For NRDC.
Rich Schrader from Natural Resource Defense Council. There are three basic takeaways from what happened this week. One, let's give Governor Andrew Cuomo his due. He stood up to the oil industry, he kept his promise, he had Commissioner Zucker look at this in a very clear, objective, scientific way, and we beat the oil and gas industry, fracking in New York State, and it's a win that's going to resonate across the country. So give Governor Cuomo his due. Two, this wouldn't have happened, as Roger said, without the grassroots. And I personally, speaking personally now, proud to have worked with every one of you. We were here in 2009 with Mark Ruffalo and Pete Seeger, which was really the kind of kickoff of that campaign. And that infused the spirit of the grassroots part of this whole campaign, this whole coalition. And without that energy, grit, determination, and guts, we wouldn't be here today at all. So congratulations, everybody here. It's been great to work with you on this project. Three, this is a momentous victory. Don't forget that. In New York State, you'd have to go back to Westway in the 70s. I'm old enough to remember Westway. I'm almost old enough, my kids think, to remember the Erie Canal being built. Westway was a huge, huge victory that really had an enormous energizing aspect for the environmental movement for the next 10 years. This can have the same, in some ways this may be even a bigger victory. And we beat an extraordinarily rich, extraordinarily powerful adversary. I mean, they're so rich and powerful, they don't have to read the health report to come out against it, because they couldn't have possibly read it, they didn't have the time to, but they were against it. They're right now the same adversaries that are going to try to fight us as we move forward on renewables. They're trying to kill wind in Washington, they're trying to kill solar in Washington, they tried to kill solar in this state, but they failed. But you know something? We beat them then, we beat them yesterday, we'll beat them tomorrow as well. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I woke up this morning proud to be a New Yorker. A state in which people speak, citizens, we speak, and government listens. Our government listened to us, they listened to the science, they listened to the people, and they made a decision based on the facts. This is, as Rich just said, a momentous victory. This is a turning point, and I can see the ripples from this decision going out across this country, if not across the world. And we hope that it will inspire people. It is certainly an empowering and an energizing moment when government actually listens and does what we ask them to do. So thank you, Governor Cuomo, for being such a leader, and thank you, Joe Martens and Commissioner Zucker.
Water and Natural Resources Associate from Environmental Advocates.
Science and reason prevail. Environmental Advocates of New York applauds Governor Cuomo for his leadership on this critical issue, and we thank him for keeping his commitment to follow the science. We also, of course, have to thank the hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers who took the time out of their personal lives for the past 6 years to have their voices heard. Thank you. It is due to your unprecedented advocacy that we are here today. We look forward to working with our colleagues and New Yorkers and Governor Cuomo towards a green energy future. Thank you all.
Catskill Mountain Keeper.
So 7 years ago, when somebody walked into our office and said, "What's the deal with gas drilling? There's a landman have been coming to my neighbor's house." I did not know what was going to happen. None of us in that community knew what was going to happen. We didn't even know what fracking was then. That's one of the things that changed my life and changed thousands of people's lives in the state of New York, was that activity. And shame on the industry for pushing with half-truths, misinformation, faulty documents, and plain lies. One of the first conversations I had with somebody out west, because I called out west and said, "What does this mean if they're coming to New York to frack?" And one of the persons from the Powder River Basin Commission in Wyoming said, "Well, first off, if the people from industry's lips are moving, they're lying." That sentence resonated with the New Yorkers because they found out the information. They learned, they went to the forums, they stayed up all night Googling things. They talked to neighbors, they talked to people across the state, they talked to people in Pennsylvania who were dealing with the issue, people in Texas, Wyoming, Colorado, Ohio, the 34 states that it's happening in and impacting people's lives. Yesterday we saw leadership in rare form in the governor giving the decision over to his experts to look at the science. And we saw courage in Joe Martens and courage in Howard Zucker to say, no, this should not happen. It's dangerous, it's unsafe. I don't want my kids to live with that.
Yes.
And I just gotta say, I'm used to coming here. I've come here a lot over the last 6 years. There's usually a lot of people in here and a lot of noise. And I'm usually screaming really loud to get over the noise so that the mics can hear it. And we're always yelling, "Man, fracking now, stop fracking," whatever. I just want to do it here in this Capitol. I want to scream as loud as I can one more time. But I'm not going to say ban fracking now. I'm saying, thank you, New York! We ban fracking!
Okay, great. Next we have Russ Haven, Legislative Director for the New York Public Interest Research Group.
Thanks. On behalf of New Yorkers everywhere, we say thank you to Governor Cuomo and your administration for sending fracking packing. About time, we really appreciate it. This is a huge triumph for community voices over one of the most powerful special interests in the country. These victories on behalf of public health and the environment of this magnitude are rare. This is an inflection point in terms of changing, we hope, the course of the future when it comes to a safer environment and sane, safe, renewable energy policy. So thank you, Governor Cuomo.
Thank you. And next we have two elected officials from the Elected Officials to Protect New York group, which is a grouping of over 850 local elected officials from across the state who have written to the governor and asked him for a moratorium, continued studies on this practice as they learned about it. And as many towns have banned it and had moratoriums across the state. Welcome up Greg Young, town board member from Glovesville, and also town supervisor from New Paltz, Susan Zimmett.
On behalf of the more than 850 members from all 62 counties in the state, we give a resounding thank you for the governor for making the right choice. When our organization was founded in 2012, we had a simple premise that fracking not move forward in the state of New York unless and until independent, comprehensive health, environmental, and socioeconomic studies were completed and showed that fracking could be safely done. We thank the governor for allowing the time and the resources for Dr. Zucker and his predecessor, Dr. Shaw, to do their due diligence, to look into the science, and the science ultimately prevailed. On behalf of all of our constituents, our 850 plus members serve on legislatures, boards, and councils that represent more than 13 million New Yorkers. And on behalf of them, we as elected officials say thank you for protecting our communities, and we look forward to working with the governor in advancing renewables.
Yesterday, I got a phone call from the press telling me that the governor banned fracking. And I said, "You're really kidding me, this is an April Fool's joke, right?" And he said, "No, Susan, the governor really banned fracking." And I said, "Come on, this is an April Fool's joke. And he said, no, Susan, go look at the press. And I went, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. This is a monumental moment for all of the fracked activists, the elected officials, the environmental groups, the grassroots groups started Frack Action, one of the original groups to get this going. Monumental moment in our state history that Governor Cuomo banned fracking in New York State. And let me tell you, the entire world is watching. This is a big move. This is going to have repercussions all over the world in terms of fracking. This is just the beginning to rolling back fracking and bringing back sanity to our country. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, elected officials. And lastly, we have a lifelong New Yorker who has dedicated a lot of time and energy to this movement. Someone who we sat around her kitchen table, like hundreds of New Yorkers have sat around their kitchen tables in this wonderful grassroots movement of people learning about fracking and deciding to take action. And some of us sat around hers and we organized a large rally concert event over in the Egg years ago in 2012. And from that created a wonderful film called Dear Governor Cuomo, which thankfully now will have a very happy ending. So I'd like to thank and bring up Natalie Merchant.
See if I can get through this. Well, throughout this struggle, I have over and over heard the governor say, we're not going to make this decision based upon emotion. We're going to make it based on facts. And I'm so happy that the facts were finally able to come to light and the decision was made on those. But I have to tell you that I deal in emotion. It's my stock in trade. And this has been one of the most emotional struggles of my life. As a mother, as a lifelong citizen of the state, when I heard I read Tom Wilber's book, Under the Surface, about the progression of events in New York around fracking. When I finished reading that book, I was devastated and felt that I had to do something. And when we made the film Dear Governor Cuomo, and we appealed to his sense of justice and humanity and compassion and reason, we never really imagined that he would hear, that he would respond the way he did. And it was mentioned that 4.5 years ago, Pete Seeger came to this very building here in the Capitol in Albany, the state capitol, sounding the alarm. The gas industry had their sights set on New York, and Pete wasn't going to allow that. This is where I don't make it through. Thanks, Pete. Thanks for giving me credit. Played an important part. I mean, Sandra was just telling me yesterday at Seneca Lake when they were being hauled away by the police protesting a gas storage facility there. They were singing and they were playing music, and she was salvaging instruments as people were being taken away by the police. Music is a galvanizing force. And just to celebrate this, can we just sing a little bit of This Land Is Your Land, because I want to honor Pete. All right, I'll try to find a good key. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made to be frack free. New York is frack free.
Important struggle to protect our water and air and our children and our grandchildren, our friends, our families, our neighbors, our communities. And this is just the beginning. We are ready to roll up our sleeves and get to work. The governor now has millions of partners across this state who who are determined to make New York the renewable capital of the United States. We're going to have everyone sign a thank you card that we made, and we'll be walking over to the governor's office to present that to his people there. And we just welcome everyone to really celebrate an important victory that will impact the lives of our children and children to come, not only here in New York, but across this great country and around the world. Thanks so much for coming.
I'll take that too. Well, I'm glad everybody.
This is a hug for the governor.
Oh, thank you. I'll take hugs. I like hugs.
Everybody hugging.
Well, thank you. And I'm keeping the flowers. I'm not giving them to the governor. Thank you.